Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Aginaatimirandasya Gyananjala Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Guruve Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Taralaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tarabhaktaya Namo Namaha Yam Prabhajantam Anapetyam Apetya Krityam Dvaipaino Viraha Katara Ajuhava Putreti Tammayatayo Tarvo Binedustam Sarvabhutam Munimanatoshmi Bhaktya Vihina Aparada Lakshay Shiptascha Karmadi Tarangamadye Kripa Maitvam Sharanam Prapana Brinde Namaste Charanaravindam Bhajami Radham Aravinda Netram Smarami Radham Madhurashmitasyam Vadami Radham Karuna Baradram Tato Mamanasti Katyana Chapi. I first of all offer millions of Dandavat pranams unto the lotus feet of my most beloved Gurudev, Nitya Leela Pravishta Om Astotarasara Shishimad Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And the same again, millions of times unto the lotus feet of our beloved Nitya Leela Pravishta Om Astotarasara Shishimad Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, and all the Vaishnava and Vaishnavi devotees of the Lord, Dandavat pranams. So we're assembling this third canto. We're seeing what is in 7 short days, 7 hours, trying to get a picture of the whole canto. That's my purpose, and going through the different topics to some detail so that we're familiar with the topics. But really it's this having the advantage of this ability to study the Bhagavatam the way that Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has offered us this opportunity of breaking it into these sections, just as we did with the first canto and the second canto. It just creates a familiarity. So I've been saying that each day, so I don't think it's any problem with saying it repeatedly. So in the third canto, it begins with 4 chapters describing the meeting between Vidura and Uddhava and Maitreya. So there we get the groundwork. And then we go into Sarga and Visharga, this creation by Krishna, manifesting from Mahavishnu through Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, the lotus, etc. And then Visharga, this sub-creation by Lord Brahma. And then it seems that Vidura gets restless to hear the direct pastimes of Krishna directly. And in answer to his question, Maitreya begins to speak the beautiful Varaha pastime. That goes on for 7 chapters. And then after that, we come back again to this Sarga and Visharga in summary. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is describing that's the 4th stage. And now we've reached the 5th stage, or the 5th section of this third canto, where it's the introduction of Kardama Muni and Devahuti, this pastime. And then the 6th and final section of the third canto are the instructions, 9 chapters of instructions by Kapila Rishi. So try and collect that thread. Then maybe tomorrow I can ask one of you to say that. It's helpful. It's helpful for me when I keep saying it every day. I go away from here so fired up. Each time I've come and spoken, I go away completely inspired by hearing it spoken like this. You know, it helps me to address it. And today it's going to be very interesting because we have to reconcile the aspect of Kardama Muni's meditation and see the variant degrees of bhakti. We have been so blessed to come to the highest conception of bhakti. Not only the highest conception, but actually having it clearly described. What is Manjari Bhav? What is that place? So we've had that conception, and now we're hearing of different conceptions of bhakti. Remember, as I said a month or so ago, who is it that Sutta Goswami is addressing? What is the adhikar of those sages in front of him? And Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is describing that most of them were like Sakam Karma Bhaktas or Jnana Mishra Bhaktas at best, because they had not heard the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That was not manifest 3,000-4,000 years ago. Understand the climate 3,000 or 4,000 years ago, not even Sri Radha was worshipped, even 300 or 400 years ago. In Jaipur, Govindaji was there, and then when they wanted to put Radha beside her, a whole, objection arose. Baladev Vidyabhushan had to go and present his Govinda Bhasya to reconcile all of this. So this was 300 years ago. Not even Radha was on the altars. So now we're going back millions of years ago to Satya Yuga. So we can't expect. What it does, it exemplifies the teachings of Mahaprabhu. How amazing has it come from this place 3,000-4,000 years ago to today, where we talk about Radha Bhav, Madanakya Mahabhav, just like pass the bread and butter, pass the salt. It's like so normal for us to actually speak, but understand its pristine position. Never take it for granted. We have been so deeply blessed with this, appreciation of what are these higher stages. It's not normal. It's extremely rare. We were saying this yesterday. So appreciate these different stages of bhakti that are going to be described today. And this is what people would become nourished by. And we also can take so much nourishment from an appreciation of that place. Just like with Prahlad Charita, for example. Srila Gurudev has spoken this pastime so many times. How many festivals have you been to when Gurudev is speaking Prahlad Charita? How many? Dozens. More than a dozen. So many. Because he's exemplifying Prahlad's nishta, his absolute solid nishta to Krishna, that he can be thrown off a cliff, etc. So we get so much from these pastimes. So now Vidura is inquiring directly about the personality of Swayambhuva Manu. Swayambhuva Manu is such an elevated person. He's about to take charge of the worldly affairs for the next 71 cycles of Satya, Treta, Dwapara and Kali. 71 cycles. So that's millions of years. He's about to take charge of that. And Vidura is naturally interested. Who is this personality, Swayambhuva Manu? And what specifically is his lineage? Because Vidura has heard about Priyavrata and Uttanapad, who are the two sons of Swayambhuva Manu. And he's heard about that Swayambhuva Manu had a wonderful daughter called Devahuti. So he's inquiring about the lineage of Swayambhuva Manu. And the description of Priyavrata, this will be described, this is the elder son of Swayambhuva Manu. He will be described in the 5th canto, right at the beginning of the 5th canto. Priyavrata was such an exalted personality. He could even create another sun. He wasn't satisfied with one sun going around the planet. He actually wanted 2. So he created another sun. This is the greatness of these personalities. This is the son of Swayambhuva Manu. And then his other son, Uttanapad, was the father of who? Dhruva Maharaj, yes. Was the father of Dhruva. So this is described in the 4th chapter, 4th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Now in this 3rd canto, his glorious daughter is about to be described, Devahuti. So Maitreya begins to describe how Kardama Muni was performing Dandavats, Prabhuji, Haribol, was performing austerities. Kardama Muni was not one of the 10 mentioned sons of Lord Brahma that we described. Jai Radha Gopinath Ju Ki Jai, Sachinandana Gaura Hari Ki Jai, Purnima outfit Ki Jai, Jai Ho. Very nice. Jai Ho. So Kardama Muni is not one of those 10 sons who was manifested immediately from Lord Brahma. He manifested from Lord Brahma's shadow. And he was a very good son of Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma instructed him to populate the planet, be like a progenitor. So that was his purpose. So he performed austerities for 10,000 years. Meditational austerities. In Satya Yuga, the form of the Yuga Dharma was meditation on Supersoul, Antaryami, in the heart. That was the yajna, that was the form of meditation. In Treta Yuga, it's sacrifice. And in Dwapara Yuga, it's deity worship. And in this age, it's Harinam, Harinam, Harinam Eva Kevalam. So these different Yuga Dharmas. So the Yuga Dharma in Satya Yuga was meditation on Antaryami, in the heart. And they had the ability because of the environment. Remember, I've spoken before about the qualities of Satya Yuga. It's described as Somaha, completely peaceful. Surid, everyone was completely friendly to everyone else. And Niravaha, totally non-envious. What's that? Surid, Samha, totally envious. And there's one more quality. How can I forget that? Oh, Shantaha. Everyone was completely peaceful. So these 4 qualities, just like try and appreciate today the qualities of quarrel and hypocrisy are present everywhere. There's nowhere on the planet that you won't find disturbance. Even you go to the North and South Pole, there's pollution and so on like that. The environment is disturbed. Everything is disturbed. Simultaneously, or similarly, in Satya Yuga, nothing was disturbed. Everything was totally harmonious and peaceful. And yet, the meditational process was on Antaryami, which it seems like a contradiction. It wasn't so high as it is in Kali Yuga. It seems as the yugas come down, the mercy of Krishna goes up to give us higher mercy as the ages descend. So in this Satya Yuga, Kardama Muni was meditating on the banks of the Saraswati. He had a beautiful hermitage there. And he was also remembering the instructions of his father to propagate the planet. So he was also thinking of a future wife to do that with. He was meditating on that simultaneously. And after 10,000 years of meditating, then Krishna, it's described, beautiful form of Krishna, descends on Garuda and gives him darshan. And Kardama Muni is very astonished to see the beauty and sweetness of Krishna. And he offers 8 beautiful verses of prayers glorifying Krishna in a very philosophical way. It's not like an entirely personal way. He's talking about his beautiful features, etc. But it's, after you've read further prayers, it seems to be somewhat limited. Because who is Kardama Muni's Ishtadev? Who is he meditating on? He's meditating on Mahavishnu. And he's meditating on the Supersoul. That's what he's meditating on. So, very beautiful prayers by Kardama Muni. And then Krishna, he reciprocates with 10 beautiful verses, benedicting Kardama Muni and reciprocating with him for his austerities of 10,000 years. He's expressing his gratitude that he has done this. He's taken this time to meditate on Krishna for 10,000 years. And then he glorifies Kardama Muni, and then he says, now I will fulfill the desire in your heart to have the perfect wife. Which is a little strange for us to hear that, but at the same time, this was his duty. This is what he'd been told by his glorious father, Lord Brahma, to actually do, to propagate the worlds. So he had to have a wife to propagate the worlds with. So he was meditating on who would be that perfect partner for him to create that population. So then Krishna, at the end of he speaks 10 verses after this. And during these 10 verses, he describes to Kardama Muni that very soon Lord Manu, Swayambhuva Manu, will arrive at your ashram the day after tomorrow, and he will bring his beautiful daughter with him and his wife Satarupa, and he will beg for your hand to marry his daughter, Devahuti. And this is the perfect wife that you have been meditating on for so long to accomplish your desire to please your father. So this is like the etiquette, because later on Lord Brahma comes and Lord Brahma congratulates him on following this etiquette of trying to please. We see in Indian culture today, like the families will always go and try to touch the feet of mother and father daily. It happens everywhere, all the different households I go into. In Western world we don't have any culture. It's barbarian culture, but in this land of India, some culture still remains. And we see that honor to their parents. So Kardama Muni becomes very satisfied with that, and it's described that when Vishnu, Krishna, flies away on Garuda, there's a whole description of how the Somaveda are being vibrated by the wings of Garuda. It's very beautiful. So this is all like Aishwarya mood, but it's still extraordinarily beautiful. And I just want to read here to be very clear on who is his Ishtadev and who is he meditating on. This is from Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, because we have been taught by our beloved Gurudev very clearly the distinctions in bhakti. I began by talking about this, the distinctions in bhakti. So we have the Jnani Bhaktas, we have the Shuddha Bhaktas, we have the Premi Bhaktas, we have the, what's the next one? That's the last one. Who are the Pandavas? Huh? Prem Para. Para Prem, yes. Be confident, speak loudly. Yes. Oh, you got a bit, okay. Yeah. So these 5 types of bhaktas described in Srimad Bhagavatam Rita, and of course Gurudev says that this prematur bhakta of Uddhav, this doesn't even enter Braj. So we're not even looking at the bhakti in Braj. And then we see Gurudev has described from the cowherd boys, Sakya Ras, and then Mother Yashoda, Vatsalya Ras, then the gopis, Madhurya or Shringara, and then the different gradations of gopis also. And ultimately, those who are most intimately serving Sri Radha, these manjaris. This is like the highest type of seva. Krishna spends 12 hours a day with the gopis, and only 12 hours a day divided amongst Dasya, Sakya and Vatsalya moods. So 12 hours a day he's with just the gopis alone. So this is Krishna's desire. So if we want to please Krishna, we want to come in this line. So as we described yesterday, Gurudev is always saying to us, repeat after me, I want to be a Palya Dasi of Srimati Radharani. And he made us repeat it so many times. And it's amazing, after 20 years he made an impression. So when we're hearing these pastimes, we're remembering what is my Gurudev's ultimate gift of what is the highest type of bhakti. So we are hearing this simultaneously as knowing what is the final conclusion. So it's not in a contradictory way. Now, this is very important for us to understand. Who are these personalities that are being presented to Kardama Muni? What is he seeing in his meditation? And Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is saying in this is verse 31 of the 21st chapter. He's saying, controlling the senses, having shown mercy to the living beings as a householder, he's describing Kardama Muni's future. He's going to be a householder because at the moment he's in the renounced condition, and then he's going to take the hand of Devahuti and become a householder. You will then give fearlessness to the living beings as a sannyasi. When he leaves Kapila Muni at the end, he's giving an example of fearlessness to the living entities in the world. It's described that he travels without shelter and without fire. That must mean he's just living raw foodstuffs. But he doesn't take the fire. Then you will see yourself and the universe within me, Mahavishnu. This is a key word. He's going to see Mahavishnu. And you will see me as Kshiradakshai Vishnu within yourself. Antaryami, Paramatma. So it's very important for us to know, who is his Ishtadev and what is his place or vision of worship. So Mahavishnu and Kshiradakshai Vishnu. These are the words of Bhagavatam. So this is in the chapter 21. Yesterday we spoke up to chapter 20. So now chapter 21. Today we will go through 4 chapters, which is like a separate section on its own. It's the 5th section before Kapila Muni's instructions. And then Kardama Muni, he is greatly pleased with that benediction. And then there are some descriptions, Haribol, of the beautiful ashram that is surrounded by the Saraswati at Bindu Sarovar, where Kardama Rishi has his ashram. And then the next day, Swayambhuva Manu on his chariot, he comes to that very ashram with his wife and daughter and a retinue. And then he comes into the presence of Kardama Muni, who glorifies him very beautifully and extols the glories and necessities of a Kshatriya king on the planet to withhold all the rogues and miscreants. Without strong governance, then there will not be any peace or opportunity to meditate on the planet. So he's glorifying him. Then there are many descriptions about the Varnashram system, and Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada is using this opportunity to describe that Varnashram in these verses. This is the 21st chapter. And then Swayambhuva Manu, he in turn glorifies Kardama Rishi, Kardama Muni. And then he explains the purpose of his visit is to find a suitable husband for his daughter. He explains that his daughter, Devahuti, has heard of the beauty and excellence of Kardama Muni's meditational practices, his austerities, from Narad. Narad Rishi is already here. Narad Rishi comes everywhere. All around is Narad Muni Prabhu. Or Narad. Narad Rishi. And she's completely given her heart to Kardama Muni. And Kardama Muni, as soon as he sees Devahuti, he also is ready to reciprocate with her completely. And he accepts the hand of Devahuti. And then there's a marriage ceremony in the ashram, and all the retinue are there. And it's described how Satarupa, she gives many gifts and dowry and so on at that time. So then Kardama Muni, he continues, and then there's some glorification. I'm just describing exactly what's in the chapters. Then there's some glorification again by Swayambhuva Manu, and then Swayambhuva Manu returns to his city of Brihasmatpur, I think it's called again. Brahmavarta, it's called, his city. And then there's a description of his welcome into that city. So these descriptions are giving us a glimpse of Satya Yuga, of what was the condition of Satya Yuga. We're in Kali Yuga now. We should know its transitory state. We should know it only has 427,000 years left to go, and then it's going to come back into Satya Yuga. So these yugas are just rolling through the day of Lord Brahma. So when the devotees hear about this conception of time and the different yugas, it's very helpful to become more transcendental to our material predicament, to this material situation, when we see it from that higher perspective. So that description is there at the end of the 22nd chapter. And then in the 23rd chapter, it just focuses on Devahuti and Kardama Muni. And it's described how for many, many years, Devahuti, she would serve her husband absolutely. She was not asking for anything, even though she's a princess. She's the princess of the ruler of the world. Such a high material position, coming from palaces, etc. But still, like we hear the story of Umadidi, she was also very wealthy previously to coming to the mutt. So, like this, she had that background. Nevertheless, she completely disregarded her sensitivities, and she dedicated every moment of her life to pleasing her exalted husband in every single way. And it's described that after many, many years, because of her devoted service, she had neglected her body totally. Her hair had all become matted, her flesh was all withered away, she'd become very skinny, and she'd become like layered with dirt. Actually, she hadn't taken any sort of care whatsoever. Understand what is that relationship? It's only about serving Krishna through that process that Kardama Muni was practicing of meditation, and she was serving that totally. They were not looking for some sort of enjoying situation from the very beginning. This is also in tune with Indian culture. When the Indians marry, they check out the astrology chart, etc., and it's usually the parents who arrange for the marriage. And if there's any attraction, well, that's nice, but that's not the priority. That's not what they're thinking of the progeny still. They're thinking of producing children to continue their material, family lineage, whatever. But still, that is still present today. So it's encouraging to see that. But previously, of course, it was so much intact in Satya Yuga, to such a degree that Devahuti would neglect herself entirely. That wasn't the taste in the enjoyment of each other's bodies or, that personal relationship. The taste was still in the pleasure of serving the Lord. That was the higher taste. So that was their focus. So Devahuti, quite naturally, disregarded all of her own, necessities. And then after some time, it's described how Devahuti is actually hoping that all this austerity she's performing is going to yield some fruit of benediction from Kardama Muni. So she wasn't doing it for nothing. It wasn't it was entirely, I am your mistress and you can just do because I love you so much like that. It wasn't on that level. It was she had an intention. It's described in the verses that she was hopeful that her glorious exalted husband would give her some benediction. And then after some time, Kardama Rishi, he said, actually, I have to become more renounced now. And when he mentioned this, then Devahuti said, but first, you should give me some children. First you should do this. So then you should give me some children, and you should give me some place to stay where we can actually have a family. Because just in the ashram where they were, just a small thatched cottage didn't seem to be, sufficient for what Devahuti had in mind anyway. And then this amazing, astonishing accomplishment of Kardama Rishi Muni by his mystic potency, he just in a moment develops this 7-story aerial mansion. This is remarkable, how he could just, and he himself is also astonished by it. When he sees it, he's completely like, wow, how did that happen? But Krishna is beyond what we can comprehend. He is achintya, so he can produce whatever. Like sometimes Srila Gurudev would also be astonished at the number of people who would come to him to listen to his Harikatha, to how successful his mission seemed to be going on. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada was the same. They are astonished at the workings of the Lord. So Kardama Muni was also astonished when he saw this 7-story mansion floating in space. And it was bedecked with beautiful beds and milk-white sheets, and swans were there, and there were beautiful maidservants there. And the description is maybe 7 or 8, 9 verses through of the opulence of that 7-story mansion. And then Devahuti, she's looking at that, and then she's aware of her own, dirtiness and skinniness, and she feels very uncomfortable. And then Kardama Muni, it's described, because he knows, he can hear someone's mind completely, he realizes that she's displeased because of the nature of her body, etc. And then he tells her, you dive into Bindu Sarova, and all your desires will be fulfilled. So Devahuti, she dives into Bindu Sarova, and there she comes across a beautiful house within Bindu Sarova, and there's thousands of maidservants there. They immediately take her and they untangle all her hair, and they wash with soaps and creams and powders and so many things her body until it's completely golden again, shining. And they feed her beautiful elixirs and special foodstuffs, and they completely rejuvenate, revive and nourish her body. And after some time, then they dress her very beautifully, and then it's described all the different ornaments they put on her, and then they show her a mirror of herself, and as soon as she sees herself looking back to her normal princess type status, immediately she thinks of Kardama Muni. As soon as she sees that, that's her chastity. These are all descriptions. Women in particular should, I'm sure you have done over periods of time, studied this quality of chastity that is exemplified by Devahuti. Anasuya also is considered the most chaste lady, but Devahuti's chastity is extreme. As soon as she sees her reflection in the mirror, the first thing she thinks about is her husband. The first thing she's thinking about is him. And by that thought of thinking about him, she's immediately, mystically transported immediately into his presence. And then when Kardama Muni sees Devahuti looking so beautiful, he also becomes inspired to go into this Grihastha ashram and perform his duty to produce children. And then Kardama Rishi, he transports Devahuti to this 7-story aerial mansion, and then it's described that they go to all the heavenly gardens of the Devas. For 100 years, they're just flying around, and it's described how Kardama Muni is showing Devahuti all of the globe. He's showing her all the areas of the different planetary systems, etc., and the different beautiful gardens in Swagaloka, and flying her. And Devahuti completely forgets, or says that she forgets about Krishna. But it's described that Kardama Muni doesn't forget for a second. It's described that Kardama Muni stays soberly conscious the whole time, because he's just performed 10,000 years of austerities. He doesn't lose it, so to speak. Whereas Devahuti, it's described she becomes enamored with all that beauty that she's witnessing in the different gardens and so on. But Kardama Muni, he doesn't. He doesn't lose his equilibrium. And then Devahuti, after 100 years, she's requesting children again. So then they come and they park this 7-story aerial mansion at Kardama's ashram. I don't know how they did. I was thinking this morning, how are they going to park that? Because that's what they do. They actually, the mansion comes back to the ashram, because it's talking about simultaneously the beauty of the mansion as well as the environment of the hermitage, Kardama Muni's hermitage. So they park that ashram in his hermitage, which is surrounded by the Saraswati river. And then Kardama Muni, it's described, he manifests 9 expansions of himself to satisfy Devahuti. And it's described in both commentaries that the woman's desire for sexual enjoyment is 9 times greater than the man's. So this is why Kardama Muni, he expands 9 times to satisfy her. And it's very wonderfully described that just at one time, he impregnates her with his semen from 9 different persons. I don't know, looking at it chronologically, you have to figure it out. But anyway, it's only one time that he actually does it. And that same day, she gives birth to 9 daughters. She doesn't have to go through any pain of sort of pregnancy or anything. Just one time, 9 daughters immediately come. And these daughters are incredibly beautiful, and they're going to be the forebearers of so many areas of the population. Because later on, Lord Brahma comes and says, now you have to give your daughters to all the different sages. Like Atri Rishi is one of them, who takes his daughter Anasuya, for example. And all the different sages, Daksha comes, and the other Pulastya, Pulaha, all the different sages come, and they take eventually one of these daughters to procreate in the world. And then again, Kardama Muni is saying, well, now I have given you these daughters, now I'm going to go to the forest again, take sannyas. So then it's described how Devahuti, she begins to scratch the ground with her toes. And both commentators, Bhaktivedanta Swami and Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, remark that this is actually the same action that the gopis in Vrindavan performed when Krishna was telling them to go home in Pranaya Geet, in that chapter 29, I think it is, in the Rasa Panchadiya section. And then how she's saying, the daughters, they will get married and go away, then who will be left to protect me? Who will look after me? So there's a whole description of what is the Vedic system here, that the woman, being more fragile than the man, should be looked after by the father, and then looked after by her husband, and then looked after by her son. This is the Vedic system, so that she's always sheltered and always looked after. So she's protected, basically, by a male figure in her family, father, husband, and son. Who will look after me and give me fearlessness? She asks specifically, to be not afraid. And then Kardama Rishi says, very soon you will have the Supreme Lord as your son. And it's described how Krishna, Kapila Muni, he comes in the covering of Kardama Rishi's semen. It's like at different times Krishna advents, and he comes in different ways. Like as Varaha, he came from the nose of Lord Brahma, and as what is the other one? Nrsingadev, he just came from a pillar. This was where he. But Kapila Muni is taken from the semen of Kardama Rishi, because Kardama Muni was so pure in his renunciation and meditation that Kapila Muni could take shelter of that semen. And then Kapila Muni is manifested in the... it doesn't say that he comes from the womb of Devahuti explicitly like that. I didn't read that exactly like that. It says that Kapila appears to explain his Sankhya philosophy. It doesn't say that he comes from her womb directly. He says, my appearance in this world is especially to explain the philosophy of Sankhya. And that's when we first sort of hear about his manifestation coming. So, but a little bit later on, when Kardama Muni leaves the ashram, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he describes how Kapila Muni takes the milk of his mother. He takes that mother's milk. So this is all phenomenal. It's all like, amazing for us to hear these activities of the higher personalities compared to our lowly situation now. So, but still trying to see some sort of thread through that we can comprehend what's actually going on. So, Kapila Muni is manifested, and all the Devas come, headed by Lord Brahma, and they all glorify him. First of all, Lord Brahma, he glorifies Kardama and Devahuti for bringing these daughters into existence, and then he also glorifies this form of the Lord who is about to be manifested. This comes just before the manifestation of Kapila. So then Kapila Rishi comes, and at this time, now this is the very interesting part. Why would Kardama Muni leave when Krishna advents in his ashram? This is the logical question. Why would he go away when Krishna has just advented as his son? Can you imagine Nanda Baba leaving when Krishna becomes born? Vasudeva didn't have a chance because he was locked in the jail. But, Dasarath, imagine him leaving when Lord Ram gets born. These different fathers of Krishna when he manifests. Kashyapa Muni, Kashyapa Rishi also, when Vamanadev was born. Would they leave their son behind? So why did Kardama Muni leave? And it's described, interestingly, I want to read it to you by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, because this is a very pertinent question. What sort of bhakti was Kardama Muni engaged in if he would just leave after the appearance of his son? So this is described in this 24th chapter. I want just to read this part here by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. He's saying, as if he is Kardama Muni, why should I immediately renounce when my son is already here? And he's saying, just before this, he's saying that because his affection in Vatsalya Bhav will obstruct his Sthai Bhav, which is Dasya Bhav, service. He thinks that this Vatsalya is going to obstruct his Dasya mood if he begins to be so affectionate to his son. He thinks that that will not be helpful for his ultimate meditation. In other words, his meditation is more important than the personal aspect. This was so many millions of years ago. So today we can look and we can sort of see it in a different light from the gradations of Bhakti Devi. What is that mood of Bhakti that he actually has? What is his nature of Bhakti, his worship? So it's saying here, why should I not immediately renounce? I will not commit an offense to the Lord in giving him up when he appeared in my house, because the worshipable Lord is dependent on worship, according to the Vaishnavas. Thus, one should have more eagerness for worshipping the Lord than for the Lord himself. Can you understand that? He wants to worship. He wants to demonstrate like Archan. He wants to show worship. He's saying that this worship is what Krishna feeds off. Is that what Krishna adores? This is what the Aishwarya Bhakta is aware of, that because he's worshipping Krishna, so naturally he's thinking Krishna is accepting my worship. So Krishna is satisfied with the mood of worship and honor. It's very interesting to appreciate how someone in that Aishwarya Bhav perceives Krishna as enjoying this worship. And of course Krishna does enjoy that worship to some degree. Otherwise he wouldn't have it. when we hear descriptions of Vaikuntha and we read about Vaikuntha, it's very sort of like restricted when we read Brihad Bhagavatamrita, when Gopkumar wants to come close to Lord Narayan. There's so many sort of like obstructions to him. He can't like get there. So Krishna is arranging it like this. So this mood of Aishwarya, we can understand. It's not what we are trying to practice, but still we should understand it. And it's interesting to see what is the mood of Krishna. He's thinking that Krishna likes the worship more than he likes the personal relationship. But, and he's saying at the end, I wish to worship him without interruption in a solitary forest 24 hours a day. This is Kardama Muni's mentality in such a yuga, and this is a certain type of bhakti which we are honoring and which is being spoken to enliven the sages at Naimisharanya. They will, because many are yogis, they will be enlivened. For the Braja Bhaktas, this is not so, enthusing. Nevertheless, it's a part of the Srimad Bhagavatam. I was thinking today how Gadadhar would chant this Bhagavatam constantly, every day, to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at Tota Gopinath. He, Gadadhar, Sri Radha directly would be chanting these prayers from the Srimad Bhagavatam to Mahaprabhu himself. So then, there's further descriptions about Kardama Muni leaving this ashram and begging Krishna to give him his consent so that he can leave. And then Kapila speaks very beautifully and gives his consent that he can leave. Although Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is saying in the commentary, just to keep it balanced, that of course Kapila doesn't want his father to go away. Otherwise that would be very harsh. If he said, yes, you can go, don't want you anyway. What sort of harsh exchange would that be? So Kapila doesn't really want to say that, but according to fulfill the desire of Kardama Muni, then he consents to allowing him to go, so that he will enliven the world with a mood of renunciation. Because Sankhya philosophy, which Kapila Muni is about to describe in the next 9 chapters, is about detachment, principally. Just like in Bhagavad Gita, sometimes that 2nd chapter is called Sankhya philosophy. Prabhupada calls it contents of the Gita summarized, but at the same time, Vishwanath Chakravarti calls it Sankhya philosophy, that mood of detachment. So detachment, vairagya, is a tool, is an instrument for us to come to Krishna, but the principal focus for the bhakta is developing attraction to Krishna. We're not so concerned with the detachment aspect. That comes automatically. If you become more attracted to Krishna, naturally the attraction to the material energy is going to subside. It must do. That's the chemistry, that's the equation, that's how it works. But this Sankhya philosophy is principally focusing on this detachment. So this is what's going to be discussed tomorrow and the next day of these teachings. And devotional service as enunciated by Kapila Muni. So that, just in a nutshell, is that 5th stage of those 4 chapters describing Swayambhuva Manu and Kardama Rishi and his ashram and Devahuti and the aerial mansion and the pregnancy and 9 daughters and then the son finally, Kapila Dev. Seems like everyone's really tired today. Did you have a late night, an early, New Year's Eve like last night? Dropping to sleep. Huh? I don't know. Huh. Waking up early, I suppose. Yeah. So these are very wonderful topics, and tomorrow we'll go into the chapter 25, which is called the Glories of Devotional Service. And we can again define what is Braja Bhakti in relationship to the bhakti that is being demonstrated here. So in that sense, it's very helpful for us to clearly know what is Braja Bhav and what is a more Vaikuntha Bhav, to see the differences between the two. Because we will meet many people in the world who are not attracted to Braja Bhav because of their sanskar or sukriti. They don't have the eligibility to actually accept this understanding of Krishna's dancing with other men's wives. Just like Jiva Goswami presented so much in Swakiya, in Gopal Champu, if you read that. So all these other individuals, personalities are there in the world too, that we will, come in contact with. So it's helpful for us to see this differentiation between Bhakti, Devi. So we'll discuss that tomorrow. Huh? A long stick. Wake everybody up. Chitra especially. No, you always come awake when I'm starting talking about something interesting, I see. And then as soon as it gets into the fundamental elements and the aggregate of tattva, that is like, I see all the different faces just nodding off, That's okay. That's okay. Completely okay. It's completely okay. Something sticks. What I want to stick, what the purpose, I say one more time, is to, at the day after tomorrow when I leave on Saturday, to feel that these two cantos, these 2/3 cantos, you have something in your pocket. You have them somewhat familiar. This is my intention, completely, that you have that. Maybe you already have that, but just to fluff it out like this and make it into this. And to describe, of course, as much as we have time for. I mean, generally we would be spending 1 or 2 or 3 days on each chapter. We've just done 4 chapters packed into 1 hour, less than an hour. So I'm just trying to give that a summary. In connection with Braja Bhakti. I haven't stopped talking about Manjari Bhav since the beginning of the class to the end of the class. If you listen to it all, that thread is there. So it's not separate. Yeah.
When we meet people like that say Krishna's dancing with other men's wives, why should I worship? Why should I give my heart? Can we explain to them that actually...
Speak louder.
Actually that Radharani is Krishna and there is no lust in
we explain as much as Guru inspires us at the time. It's not always our decision. When we meet people, it's often very spontaneous how it comes out in what circumstances. And if we're always thinking about Gurudev as much as we can in our day, then Gurudev will inspire us with exactly the right words for that. Understand, whoever we're speaking to has supersoul bubbling in their heart. They have pure spirit there in the heart. And Krishna wants that person to hear the highest conception. But if he hears the highest conception and he goes and does something abominable with it, if he doesn't, like a sahaj, if he wants to imitate the Sakis or the Manjaris, for example, if he suddenly thinks that's actually the goal, then Krishna won't inspire his comprehension of it from you. Krishna will know exactly. He'll know. And we should also become very astute in reading people's consciousness. Where are they up to? Where are they at? What can I give this person that will inspire him more in his sadhana? Because his sadhana is imperative to reach bhav, and then from the bhav is going to come prem. So first of all, we have to inspire the practice. It has to be a regulated practice because we're talking about the rest of our lives, which may be 30, 40, whatever number of years. So it has to be a regulated. It's not just a sensational wang on the consciousness about, Manjari Bhav to somebody. That would be too challenging for the consciousness. So we have to become as expert as Gurudev was. Knowing that the heart of that soul wants to hear about Krishna. We've sat in front of many, many different groups of people, and as soon as you start talking directly about Braja pastimes, everyone brightens up. It's miraculous. Whoever they are, they become enlivened by hearing the pastimes of Braj, because it's actually the reality that the soul wants to be in. It wants to be in that place. It's a demon who actually is going to block it like that. But we have to become confident ourselves of understanding all of the Bhagavatam. We should take seriously these different instructions that Kapila is going to give, because sometimes you'll want to give that instruction to somebody. Sometimes Gurudev will inspire you. No, just teach this person about some detachment. Somebody's son will have died, their mother will have died, their brother will have died. How are you going to approach them then? You're not going to go in and say, come and dance with the gopis, with Krishna. You're going to try and give them some understanding of what is the nature of detachment from this world. Who am I in relationship to this material energy? So these instructions we can get from there.
Sure, but you specifically touched on the point that when somebody says that, Krishna's just a rascal, he's dancing with other men's wives.
That's hard. That's really harsh. I had that experience one time. It was horrible. Because you can't really explain anything, because it just gets more entangled and they get more offensive.
Yeah.
If someone says something directly,
but
like...
it's not possible to say that there actually is no lust? Because actually...
We can say those things, but what are they going to believe? We have to say it to, for our own sanity. But at the same time, what effect is it going to have on the person that you're speaking to? It'll have an effect, Prabhu, if we ourselves are carefully practicing. This is when Krishna and Guru can give us more empowerment. He wants to give us empowerment, every one of us, to greater and greater degrees every day. So depending on our own sincerity is what is going to be make the difference. If you're speaking to someone and you're speaking in such a way that they believe, this person really cares for me, for a start. It's not just some false ego trip that he's suddenly trying to hammer up, that he has some care for the welfare of my soul. If you have developed that mood of compassion in the world, then it's going to naturally have Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada and Gurudev met so many demons, but they didn't come out outrageously, attacking them, because they could see this is a very loving, divine person. They could see that, and they were able to accept so much, of what he was actually saying. Many of the devotees' parents came to see Gurudev at different times, completely skeptical, and in another generation, and Gurudev would just melt them with, beautiful exchanges. Because often that makes more... If the person goes away thinking, he was a nice person, then it's a great big plus for them. Probably for many lives. But if they go away thinking, wow, that person really freaked me out, then it's a minus. They're going to go away with that impression. So it's not always the words. But certainly in answer to your question explicitly, we should know the philosophy sufficiently to be able to, purify that apparat that they're making. And to say, yes, that Radha and Krishna are one, in fact. And it's just dancing with... But how will they know that? How will they accept that? They will accept it by your purity. There's an expression, purity is the force. Don't ever forget that. It's helpful for this New Year's Day to appreciate that we can, step into a desire to increase our purity and sadhan bhajan, to understand these topics. Okay? That was the story of Kardama Muni and Devahuti.
Especially the mother, but also the father, parents of devotees,
Yeah.
about their good qualities, and that would totally melt their heart.
Yeah. Yeah.
They would say, any mother, old mother or grandmother, or
Yes.
would totally melt their heart.
Yes. And Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada would always tell them that he's trying to look after their daughters and sons the same way as good as they did. And just flattering them. I mean, they love it, you know. It's like it's necessary. Everyone likes a bit of stroking on the back, you know. But we should know where it is, and we don't get enamored with it. But yeah. Srila Gurudev ki jai, Kardama Muni ki jai, Devahuti ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Sri Satchinandana Gaura Hari ki jai, Radha Gopinath Ju